just fed up. They're sick and tired of the smoke and the stench from this disaster. And at last night's community town hall meeting, they erupted in frustration.
That town hall did not erupt because the residents of Boyle Heights suddenly forgot how to behave. No. It erupted because they believed the people responsible for protecting them had stopped listening. A warehouse burned for 8 days. Smoke bellowed, moved through the neighborhood. 85 million pounds of frozen food began rotting in the summer heat. Residents, they complained about the smell. They worried about their breathing. They worried about their children, understandably. They worried about what was actually in that stench of the air. And then, when they finally got city officials, when they finally got county officials and Lineage executives in the same room, many of them still felt like they were receiving presentations instead of answers. So no. The chaos did not begin when people pushed past security. The chaos began when an entire community stopped believing the people standing behind the microphones. Before we continue, like this video, subscribe to Wolf Kage Los Angeles, and share it with somebody who lives in the city, because what happened inside that auditorium was more than a protest. No, it was a warning. When people believe shouting is the only way to be heard, government has already lost control of the room.
Let me straight up apologize for any confusion, miscommunication, and information that was put out, especially at the beginning when the fires were still going on, especially anything that I have said. Whether or not the smoke was harmful or not, I am very clear that all smoke under all circumstances is harmful.
That was not one of Karen Bass's political opponents speaking. That was the mayor herself, acknowledging confusion, miscommunication, and information that should have been clearer during the beginning of the emergency. And let us be fair. An apology is better than pretending nothing went wrong. Bass also acknowledged the obvious fact that all smoke can be harmful. But think about how serious the communication failure must have been for the mayor to have to clarify that point at a furious public meeting. During an emergency, communication is not public relations. Communication is part of the emergency response. People make decisions based on what their government tells them to do. Do I stay inside? Do I evacuate? Do I send my children to school? Do I go to work? Do I seek medical attention? Do I open my business? When officials provide information that residents later believe was incomplete, confusing, or dismissive, the damage does not disappear when the wording is corrected. The public begins to question every statement that comes afterward. That is the real cost of getting the message wrong. When officials lose credibility during an emergency, every later reassurance begins to sound like damage control.
This community has had to live with that uncertainty, relying on rumors, having to deal with the uncertainty, not knowing what information to trust and where to go to. And you shouldn't have had to endure that alone. Small businesses have struggled with fewer customers, they're with an uncertain future, families deciding to make choices about their health and their work based on rumors that they hear from their neighbors and what they're seeing outside, and not knowing what to do. This recovery is about trust.
She's right about that. Trust has to be earned. But the question is this: why did residents have to endure weeks of uncertainty before government recognized how badly the trust had deteriorated? The people in that auditorium were not simply asking for another website. They didn't need another speech. They wanted to know what they had inhaled. They wanted to know whether the smell was dangerous. They wanted to know how long the cleanup would take. They wanted to know whether they should leave their homes. They wanted to know whether affected workers, businesses would actually be compensated. And they wanted to know whether the warehouse would ever be allowed to operate over there again. The problem with government communication is that officials often believe releasing information is the same thing as communicating. It is not. Placing an update online does not help the resident who has never heard about it. Announcing assistance does not help the family who cannot figure out how to receive it. And holding a town hall does not repair trust when the questions people came to ask still do not receive direct answers. Trust is not restored by promising to listen. Trust is restored when people no longer have to fight to be heard.
I know how upset you are. We're upset. Our building burned down, right? We're upset too.
And that right there is why corporate apologies often fail. Yes, Lineage lost the building. Yes, its employees were affected. And yes, the company is entitled to be concerned about what happened. But the consequences were not equal. No. Lineage owned the property. The people of Boyle Heights had to breathe what came from that property. They lived beside the smoke. They lived beside the smell. They kept their windows closed during the summer heat. Some lost customers. Some missed work. Some worried about their children and elderly family members. And they did not have corporate resources, environmental contractors, or legal teams waiting to protect them. At the meeting, the cleanup contractor said approximately 1.4 million pounds of material have been removed. Another 3.2 million pounds have been staged for removal. More than 200 people were reportedly working around the clock. As many as 150 trucks a day were expected to move through the area. And the contractor said the demolition process was only around 6.5% complete. So when residents heard, "We're upset too," they didn't hear solidarity. No. They heard a corporation comparing the loss of its property to a community living with the consequences. Their building burned. Yes. Boyle Heights residents had to breathe what was left behind.
Main concern is that residents that are suffering from respiratory distress are being sent home and only given Tylenol. They're not giving chest x-rays. They're not giving oxygen. They have people that are full of lungs and their phlegm is full of it and they're not taking the phlegm out. So Barbara Ferreira, you have failed us. You did not create a medical response, an emergency medical response.
Those are allegations from a resident describing what she says people experience while seeking care. Now, they're not by themselves a medical study, but officials cannot dismiss testimony like that simply because it is emotional. The emotion is part of the evidence that the response did not feel adequate to the people living through it. And then the county's public health director responded.
I also am just going to start with an apology. The situation is unbearable for the residents that live in the immediate affected area. Are you going to do it in And you're right to call out the places where the failures have been the most acute. So I'm here to listen and to try to do a better job starting tomorrow. I want to note that that's all we can do. Today we're here because we want to do our very best to be able to understand where we failed. This is the first time I'm hearing, to be honest, that the medical system response was not good.
That statement may have been honest, but it also exposes the failure. How did residents reach the point of confronting officials at a town hall before the person leading the county's public health response heard that patients believed that they were being turned away or inadequately treated? That is the disconnect people are reacting to. Officials, they announced they have mobile clinics, masks, air purifiers, health screenings. Residents describe going from hospital to hospital, seeking, looking, searching for help. Both things can be true at the same time. Services may technically exist while still failing to reach the people who need them. A public health response cannot be measured only by how many programs were announced. It has to be measured by what happened when a frightened resident walked into a clinic and asked for help. The system cannot claim success simply because assistance existed somewhere on paper.
Have authority to issue public nuisance violations, but we need to have people call us and tell us that there's a complaint. You have to call us every day.
Think about the burden that places on the community. The residents can see the damaged warehouse. They can smell what's coming from it. They can describe how the conditions are affecting their lives. Government agencies already know that a massive industrial fire occurred, but the people living beside it are also still expected to call repeatedly so the system can establish that the nuisance is continuing. To her credit, this is one moment when Carrie Bass directly challenged the system.
Excuse me, I don't mean to differ from you, but I'm sorry. The fact that residents have to call you every day, that's not okay. I mean, I think that this is what's going on. Don't respond to me, please. We'll talk about it afterwards. But I do not like putting that burden on the community.
She's right. That burden should not fall entirely on the residents. Of course not. This is what people mean when they talk about bureaucracy. Every agency has a procedure. Every department has a form. Every official has a jurisdiction. But the smoke, the odor, and the health concerns do not respect bureaucratic boundaries. The community, The community should not have to document the same emergency day after day before the government is empowered to act. Once authorities know a serious problem exists, monitoring and enforcement should become proactive. The people living through the disaster should not also have to become investigators. Huh? When the neighborhood is already breathing the problem, government should not require residents to prove it again and again and again every single day.
Will the city commit to shut down Lineage after the cleanup? Shut it down.
Is there a response for that question? Okay, the next question.
That silence may have been the loudest statement made all night long. The residents were not only asking when the cleanup would end, they were asking what happens afterward. Will the facility reopen? Will the surviving section of the warehouse continue operating? Will Lineage be allowed to rebuild? Will the community have any meaningful say in that decision? And will the agencies that approve industrial operations besides residential neighborhoods reconsider what they permitted in the first place? Now, permanently shutting down a business may require investigations, hearings, and due process. Government officials may not have been legally prepared to promise an immediate closure from the stage, but they could have explained that. They could have said exactly who controls the decision. They could have explained the standards that would be used. They could have told residents when and how the public would participate. Instead, the moderator moved on to the next question. And when government avoids the central question, people naturally begin imagining that decision has already been made without them. The people did not receive an answer about the warehouse's future. No. They received silence.
There is no need to evacuate, okay? And Mayor Bass made a very dangerous statement that endangered my own life, along with thousands of people saying that the air was not dangerous, and we all heard that and seen that. And I got very sick because that day she declared that the air was not dangerous. I came to Boyle Heights and I did a photo shoot, and I went home and got even worse my condition. I was already sick. I live in East LA, not in Boyle Heights, and I was already sick, and then I came here and I got even more sick because of Mayor Bass. So what are you going to do to help the Boyle Heights residents and prioritize them? But after that, what are you going to do for all the people that you put in danger, like me, who are not Boyle Heights residents? How are you going to help us and be accountable for that? We need accountability from Mayor Bass and all these city officials, not just Lineage Corporation. And we also demand, the people demanded already, that we want Lineage out of East LA and Boyle Heights. Okay.
I want to answer.
I'm not finished. Wait, okay. I don't have that much time. Also, why did you wear a gas mask if you said the air was not dangerous?
That resident made some very serious accusations. The accusation concerning the mayor's mask and the precise effect of her earlier statements should be independently examined before anyone presents every detail as established fact. But the political damage is already visible. People believe they were told not to worry. People believe the danger was minimized. Folks believe officials reacted too slowly. And they believe a working class Latino neighborhood received a different level of urgency than Los Angeles would have shown somewhere healthier. That perception is now attached to Karen Bass. To be fair, Bass apologized for the communication failures. She declared an emergency. Her administration has discussed temporary housing, financial assistance, food support, utility relief, environmental investigations, and a 45-day cleanup demand. Those actions do matter. But leadership is not judged only by what happens after the public anger becomes impossible to ignore. Leadership is judged by whether people felt informed and protected while the emergency was unfolding. This is also not the first mayor fire-related crisis to damage Karen Bass politically. People remember Ghana during the Palisades fire. I know you remember that. Now they see another fire, another communication controversy, another community demanding to know why its concerns were not taken seriously sooner. That doesn't mean the two disasters were identical, but it does mean a political pattern is forming in the public's mind. When Los Angeles faces a major emergency, is the mayor leading ahead of the crisis, or is the mayor explaining herself after it? The Boyle Heights town hall was supposed to reassure the community. Instead, it revealed how deeply the community's trust had already collapsed. Of course, this is much bigger than Karen Bass. This This is bigger than Lineage. This is about government structure that communicates through websites, through press conferences, agencies, and carefully prepared talking points, while residents are still demanding one simple thing. Can you please tell us the truth? Tell us what we're breathing. Tell us who's responsible. Tell us what happens next. And stop asking the people living with the consequences to carry the burden of proving that the emergency exists. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Should Lineage be allowed to reopen that facility? Did Karen Bass and the city respond quickly enough? And do you believe Boyle Heights would have received a different response if this had happened in, say, Beverly Hills? Like this video. Share it with someone who lives in Los Angeles. Subscribe to Wolf Kage Los Angeles and turn on your notifications, because the fire may be out, but the trust is still burning.